The Minnesota Vikings extended Justin Jefferson. They finally made it happen. And we can take a big sigh of relief. But there are a lot of elements to this contract extension. What does it look like? How is it going to impact the team moving forward? And what are the salary cap implications? Do we need to worry about guys like Christian Darrisaw, Jordan Addison not being able to be extended? We're going to talk about all that and more here on the latest episode of the Real Forno Show.
Welcome to the Real Forno Show, hosted by Tyler Forness, publisher at The Sporting News, contributor on SKOL North's Purple Daily, publisher of Substack Run In Shooter, the host of The Good, The Bad, and The Hungry on the Voices of Wrestling Podcast Network, and a founding member of Vikings First and SKOL.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of the Real Forno Show. I'm your host, Tyler Forness. With me, as always, is producer Dave. And you're about to see me pop up on the screen here in just a moment. And once I do, we're going to have a lot of fun here tonight, having a conversation about Justin Jefferson being a Minnesota Viking for the next 5 calendar years. Yes, they signed him to that extension. It was a little bit different, but also the exact same of what I had predicted. I had predicted 3 years, 105 and $90 million guaranteed. I was right, except I didn't expect the 4th year also at $35 million. So I'm going to take a mini victory lap there. Look, this is a huge win for the Minnesota Vikings. It is keeping one of your core pieces for the long term, paying him what he's worth. And that means something to players. They pay attention to that. They pay attention who gets paid. They pay attention how much they're getting paid. Are they trying to nickel and dime them? Or are they just paying them, hey, you're worth X, we're going to pay you that. That matters. That matters in a locker room. That matters with all those different elements. And I'm really excited to kind of see what this means for the future of the team and how they're going to build around the contract. Because the contract, look, it's not an albatross in the same way that Kirk Cousins' contract was an albatross, because it's just different situations, even though $35 million you can equate 1-to-1. But it's really, really exciting that the Minnesota Vikings locked up arguably the coolest player in the National Football League for the next 5 years.
I agree, but Kirk Cousins, when he got his contract, was making the top money as a quarterback. Top money for a quarterback now is over 50.
I know, but the last time Cousins signed an extension was for $35 million a year.
Yeah.
It was just a 1-year deal. That's why I think people are going to compare. And it's, look, anybody who does that is just going to be doing it in bad faith, because they're not giving you any context. They're not talking about, hey, this is what that means. This is part of the story. So it's important to have that context. And guess what? We're going to give it to you, just like we give you the context every single time that you watch or listen to the show. Thank you guys so much for listening. A couple quick housekeeping notes. Don't forget, if you are on Facebook, go like us over on Facebook. Like us, follow us, do all those fun things. And I post a lot of my articles over there. There's some good discussion in those posts. And we're going to keep doing more and more at the Facebook page as things go on. Also, subscribe to the YouTube channel and podcast feeds. Give us a 5-star review. Hit the like button. Comment. We also have subscription tiers. And we'll be having a couple shows this summer that are going to be fan-requested topics. So if you're a subscriber to the YouTube channel, go find that post in the community tab. There's a couple already in there. And I'm going to pick the best ones, and we're going to do shows on them. So it should be a good time. All right? Now that we have the housekeeping stuff under the way, Dave, let's break down the contract. It is a doozy on multiple levels. So let's start here. Let's do the basics. 4 years, $140 million. That's all new money. The new total contract is 5 years, $159.2 million, which is almost $32 million average annual value with old money included. So he's not exactly beefing up the contract with some fake numbers. This is a real big boy contract. There is no fluff at the back end. There is no, hey, Tyreek Hill's a $45 million final year of the contract to spike up the numbers a little bit. No, this is a real contract. They gave him $35 million a year. And not only that, they included $88.743 million in full guarantees and $110 million in functional guarantees. What is a functional guarantee? So let's talk about this. He will have, and I'm going to actually pull up my article on it because I want to make sure that I get it right. Let's see. I'm stalling here for a minute. Okay. So 2026, he has a $24.99 million base salary. $17.99 million of it is fully guaranteed. $7 million of it is injury guaranteed only. Okay. $7 million of that $7 million fully guarantees in March of 2025. So you would have to cut him before that date in March of 2025, which is probably the 3rd or 5th day of the league year. They're not going to do that. So that's why it's a functional guarantee and not a full guarantee, because let's say Justin Jefferson does something unthinkable and gets cut and the contract gets voided because he did something and got him in major trouble with the law. We've seen it happen to players before. If that happened to Jefferson, they'd be able to get rid of that guarantee. And that guarantee would not be on the books. Now, if they voided the contract for cause, they might be able to get rid of all the guarantees. But that's a whole different story. So that's why it's called functional versus full. And that will matter if a player ends up stinking. I don't think we have to worry about that with Jefferson. The only thing we have to worry about is injury or something crazy happening off the field. But that's where the difference is. And it's a really, really simple contract. This in 20, and I want to start here. The first 2 years of cap hits, I actually wish they were a little bit higher, but it's fine. Cap hit in 2024, $8.612 million. That goes down from $19.2 million. That is a significant drop. $10.5 million bucks. Okay. Year 2, $15 million full guarantee. Now, one of the reasons is they did add one void year in 2029 because year 2, 2025, has a option bonus fully guaranteed worth $30 million. Here's what that means. An option bonus is a signing bonus that you add in the contract. So it's a signing bonus that you can just have occur. Roster bonuses are just like base salary, but you just get a lump sum. Option bonuses are a roster bonus you can spread out over multiple years. So the Vikings, that $30 million roster bonus will be pushed out to 26, 27, 28, and 29. So the 2026 cap hit is $38.987 million. That will be J.J. McCarthy's 3rd year. And the first 2 years gives them a lot of flexibility. I think that's objectively a good thing. How will they handle when the cap hits get really big? That's going to be the fascinating element. That's the element that we just don't know how they're going to handle. Because there's so many nuances to contracts, structuring the salary cap, trying to figure out, okay, how do we want the money to go? Because you don't want to take all the money right away and then push it out into future years. Because if you were to just put Jefferson with a $40 million base salary next year, but then you got to push it out, all of a sudden you're pushing out $32 million basically into future years. That's not great either. So something like doing an option bonus where you're already planning on having that baked in is objectively a good idea. Plus, 2026, that salary cap probably going to be somewhere around $320 million. So $38 million is going to be around 11 or 12% of that salary cap. That's not very much considering how good Justin Jefferson is as a player. So I think that's good. I think the way they structured it gives them the flexibility they want. They have per game roster bonuses of $510,000 a year, workout bonuses of $250,000 a year. So basically, Justin Jefferson shows up to OTAs, he gets $250,000. He suits up in every single game, he gets $510,000. Easy money. Easy money.
Except for
Those
Lamar Jackson is opting to not participate in his off-season workouts to the tune of, I think it's $750,000.
Yep. And who knows why that is. It could be that he's making like $1.5 million or something doing partnerships, and he just chose to do workouts on his own because it fit his schedule. We don't know. That's what Justin Jefferson did last year. He didn't have the workout bonuses, but that's why he skipped OTAs. He was with his partners in Miami doing promotional work. And then on top of that, he was working out. It turned out okay. So everybody's got their own, for lack of a better term, agenda. Everybody's got their own belief in how things should work and what they need to do to be ready. So as long as they're ready, hell yeah, that rocks. Last thing about the contract, and then we're going to kind of dive into some big picture and salary cap stuff. Okay.
Well, I have a contract question before we move on.
Okay.
It is with the expected cap coming up. Obviously, freeing up cap this year, and then the caps next year, even with that bonus plugged in. And then the cap after that, when you're talking $320 million or whatever it is projected, could the Vikings move some of those bigger cap hits that are at the end of the contract forward and just pay them?
The only way they'd be able to,
but I'm curious if it could be.
Well,
if there's
actually,
room.
Dave, the Vikings have done it.
Okay,
that's what they did with the Neil Hunter's contract. But here's the thing: with turning base salary into signing bonus, you don't need the player's consent. That you can do because you're just choosing, hey, we're going to pay you more money later. It does not negatively impact the player. It's only a positive. The player will take that 10 out of 10.
Well, because then about paying more money.
I know. Let me finish because there's a whole point to talking about this. Okay, so if they were to convert signing bonus or base salary in that year into signing bonus, they can do without a player's consent. What you're talking about is modifying a base salary to add more money. That would require player consent because it's not taking money and just paying you earlier because you're still paying it within the same NFL year. It's taking money from future years and moving it. That would require a player's consent. That would require a modified contract, which would be, hey, Justin, our salary cap is really good. We would like to modify your contract. Oh, how do you want to do that? We want to take $10 million from 26 and move it to 2025. So you're going to $10 million of what you're going to get next year. You're just going to get it now. And he's probably going to be like, okay, let's sign. Or he's going to be like, okay, what do I get for this? Because I'm helping you. Like, am I going to get like a raise? Am I going to get something else? Because that's not an unfair question for Jefferson or anybody in that position to ask. What the Atlanta Falcons did with Julio Jones multiple times, they just added money onto his base salary. They didn't even take money from future years. They just added it because it was Julio and he was way outplaying his contract, and they just kept giving him more money because he was frustrated with his contract. So I think when you kind of take a look at that, it's possible, but it's got way more red tape than you potentially would want to deal with. Could you deal with it? Yeah. If it makes sense, do it. But I'll also say this, Dave. That money, if you have $30 million at the end of the 2024 fiscal year, that gets added to your 2025 salary cap. So a lot of teams won't even try to do this, especially because the NFL is such a volatile business. What happens if Justin Jefferson's leg snaps in half and he has to retire? Like, it's a non-zero chance, and I'm not asking for it to happen, but we have to understand that injuries happen. So the second you move money forward like that, you are like, it could end up biting you in the ass.
So teams won't
necessarily want to do that.
Yeah. Okay.
But
why I asked the question is I was thinking, well, JJ's extension now is now paired up with JJ's rookie contract Jefferson and McCarthy, that they
Yeah.
both come up due for, in the case of Jefferson, an extension, and for McCarthy, an extension. It will be able to take his 5th-year option, but the whole idea is not to. And they'll be paired together if he's healthy and all that stuff. And if you've moved money forward, that may have given you more space. That was my thinking at the time.
No, it makes sense. They're just when you're in the NFL front office, you have to plan for those variables, and it makes sense, like, canonically in our brains, but that's why you're able to move the salary cap space forward. And I think if the Vikings end up with like $10 million in salary cap space, guess what? Just bumps to 2025. And that could just be a defensive tackle. Like, that would kick ass.
Well,
where it would help
part of
you
that could
really
be
fortify the
Darisaw.
D-line. Yeah. So let's kind of shift the focus of the conversation. Justin Jefferson does sign that contract extension. He's going to be with the Minnesota Vikings for a long, long, long time. And they are making sure that JJ McCarthy is going to be in a position to succeed. So let's take a look at the Minnesota Vikings salary cap space. All these numbers are for over the cap. They're the only people I trust when it comes to all the data that you get from, as far as like contracts and stuff. Now, you can trust individual reporters, but if you're looking like at a database, don't go to Spot Track. It's over the cap. All right. Minnesota Vikings. Now, this is not functional cap space. This is real cap space, raw cap space. So it only includes the top 51 players, and it will only include the top 51 players until I think it's August 30th, the day of final cuts. Like the day after, then you have to be fully cap compliant. So they give you time. They give you a little bit of extra wiggle room during the summer. You know that it's coming. And honestly, it's only like an extra 1.5, 1.6 million, because the two contracts that you're adding are going to be rookie minimum contracts. So that matters here. Okay. So the Vikings right now, functional cap space, top 51, $27.7 million. Okay. You can take about 6 million of that right now and give it to Danielle Hunter and JJ McCarthy. You can give 1.5 million and you can give it to those rookies. Okay.
You mean Dallas
So
Turner?
that's no. The two roster spots I just talked about to make it the final 53, not top 51. So then you're at 7.5 million that you're going to take away from that. So you're at 20 million. Then you want to set aside about $4 million for the practice squad. That's probably a little bit high, especially because the minimum practice squad salary is $12,500 a week, and there's 18 weeks. But it's also important to have that in there because that does account towards your salary cap. And you have 16 spots on the practice squad. Okay. Then with that, all that being said, you want to put aside about $4 million for in-season moves. Like how the Vikings have signed guys like Theo Jackson and Kairos Tonga throughout the year. Those add on. So basically, the Vikings are working with around $12 million to play with this year. Now, they may not use all that $15 million that we just took away from them, but you want to have it available. And one of the things is, and we talked about this on Purple Daily on Draft, which you can listen to on the Purple Daily podcast feed that I do every Monday at SKOL North. One of the big things with paying these guys, you have to put money into escrow. If I guarantee you, Dave, $100 million, guess what's going into escrow? $100 million. And that is a longstanding policy from the 60s where players weren't getting paid by owners. And they had it in there. Any guaranteed money needs to be put away into escrow, just like you would for your house. I put money into an escrow account to pay my taxes, to pay my insurance, and do all that. And when you do that, you make sure that you're in a safe spot and those people just keep getting paid. So one of the reasons why they may not extend a guy like Darisaw right now is because they just don't want to fork over that kind of cash. It's not that they can't do it. Dave, if you have $10,000 in your checking account, Are you going to spend all $10,000 to go get that car that you need to get around? No, you'll probably spend like 4 or 5 and you'll get a loan for the rest. So then you have cash reserves, because that's just a smart way to be able to manage your money so you're not put into a bind. I bought a truck in 2012 and I basically strapped myself for a few months because I needed a vehicle to get around, and I basically gave up all my cash reserves to do so. And teams don't always want to do that. The Las Vegas Raiders have a really, really poor track record when it comes to being cash fluid. They are cash poor. So they don't do a lot of signing bonuses. They do a lot of rolling guarantees, which rolling guarantees are like we talked about. Oh, in March of 25, this amount guarantees in 26. So then it allows them to wait on putting that money into escrow, so they don't have to fork it all over at once. Like, the Vikings aren't that kind of cash poor, but they may not want to fork over that kind of escrow money for another player right away. So they might wait a little bit on a Darisaw extension for that reason. This also is just speculation. I genuinely don't know if that's the case. I doubt it, because they've always been willing to spend money. This is a great ownership group. No matter what you think of the results, they care and they try to make a winner. All right. So there are so many different elements to what they could do with this cap space. And I wrote about that. I wrote about what moves I think they should make. It started with the Darisaw extension. If you have the ability to, and the Darisaw camp is willing to engage with you in that process, I would try to get that extension done now. Get it done while it's as cheap as it is. Because after this year, it could go up a couple $1 million. A couple $1 million could be a big, big deal, because that could be the determining factor between you getting a 9 out of 10 free agent or a 7 out of 10 free agent. And those little differences, the differences in the margins, Dave, they matter. So if you can get that done now, get it done.
Right. And if you did it now, Darisaw is considered top 5 offensive tackle or whatever he is, right? He's in the top. After this season, he might be numero uno offensive tackle, which is going to cause his cost to go up. And you're going to want to lock him down. Outstanding best offensive tackles in the league, or top 10 offensive tackles, don't grow on trees. Yeah. They come around once a generation.
Yeah. Absolutely. And you want to make sure that you're getting things taken care of with the people on your roster. And Darisaw is the next guy. Another guy that we need to talk about getting an extension is Cam Bynum. Cam Bynum, he was a cornerback at Cal, but just didn't have the athletic profile to be able to thrive on the outside. And I think that's okay. Like, sometimes you're just not a great enough athlete, but you have everything else. And he's a good enough athlete to play in the National Football League, just not survive at outside corner, which takes a different kind of athlete. And now that you have Bynum, you are in... Oh, Northsea is talking about jambalaya. Oh, I love me some jambalaya. Jambalaya and gumbo. Just pour that over rice, and I'm a happy guy. Oh, geez, Odie. Ooh. Odie's fart smells like Spam. Ooh. That's a brutal one, bud. Anyways. Yeah, Bynum, he's been a renaissance at safety. He's played 2,352 snaps over the last two seasons. One of the top players in the league as far as snap counts go. Just incredible. And I think if you can get him signed at a relatively good price, maybe like $8 to $10 million a year, I don't think he's an elite safety. Like, Antoine Winfield Jr. is a special kind of safety because he can really play in the slot. He does a little bit of everything for you. And he just got $21 million a year. I think you can buy him anywhere between 8 and 12, and I think that would be fair for him because I think he's closer to being at replacement level than he is being elite. And I think that's going to matter when it comes to some of these contract discussions, especially because you have guys like Justin Simmons who are like former all pros who can't get a contract because of the safety market. Like all this is going to kind of compile and matter when you're having these conversations. And if you can get Bynum on a good enough contract, I would keep him in a heartbeat. But it's not always that simple. Third guy I would look to extend, Harrison Phillips. And I think this is going to be another one where the dollar amount has to make sense. 3 years, $18 million for the contract he signed before the 2022 season. I don't think he's elite. I think he's a very solid player. He's like a 7 out of 10. You want those guys on your defensive line. You want solid players. But you can't overpay a solid player.
How
you have to give them
be at the end of his current contract?
29, I think.
Really?
I think if you give, because he was 27 when he got here, so 29 or 30, like that's fine. Give him a 2 or 3 year deal, and then by the time he's 33, you're gonna really know, okay, where are we at as far as his future? Because big guys, the round bellies in the middle of the trenches, they can go south real fast because the athleticism, the bigger you are, the harder you fall. The bigger you are, the faster your athleticism can go because it puts just a lot of stress on your body, having that extra weight. So we'll kind of see with Harrison Phillips. I'd just be careful not paying him too much because he's not an elite player. But you also have nothing on the defensive line. So you got to make sure that you have at least somebody formidable on that D line going into 2025.
The cap space is for.
Mm-hmm. I'm really intrigued. You know what? Let's pull that up. Free agency tracker on Over the Cap. Do they have 2025 yet? Yes. Okay. Some 2025 defensive linemen. Hey, look, Dave, Aaron Donald's a free agent. How about that?
And he'll be what, 40? I'm sorry.
34. He's 34. Kenny Clark. Feels like he's been in the league for 3 decades. He's only going to be 30. He's going to be a free agent. Cam Hayward is going to be 36 and a free agent. I don't think he leaves Pittsburgh. BJ Hill and DJ Jones from the Bengals and Broncos, respectively. Javon Kinlaw just signed that 1-year deal with the Jets. He's going to be a free agent. Folu Fadukasi from the Texans. Jaron Reed from the Seahawks. It's not a super high-end class, it looks like, but I'm also scrolling down to kind of see some of these players that maybe are on like rookie contracts. Jordan Phillips is a giant. He's going to be a free agent. He's more of like a true nose. Yeah, it's not a super high-end defensive line free agent class, which, let's just be honest, it kind of stinks. You may have to pay a guy like Kenny Clark a little bit of money to come here. And yeah, let's answer this because I think this is an interesting one. I kind of brought it up on Purple Daily on Draft earlier today. Ed Ingram getting a contract extension. I think they're going to hold off until they see one more year. And they have to hold off anyways because he's going into year 3. If he takes that step, the big problem with Ed Ingram is not talent. It's not ability. It's consistency. He's a power puncher. He's a guy that swings for the fences in baseball terms. He wants to hit the home run and doesn't want to hit the single. He doesn't want to hit the double in the gap. He wants to hit bombs. That's kind of how Ed Ingram blocks. He wants to destroy you. He wants to destroy you every time. Problem is when you have that mentality, it can bite you in the ass. Because if you miss, it gets ugly fast. And he needs to control those misses because the hits are really, really good. And they were more frequent last year, but the misses are still a little rough. You got to figure out a healthy balance between the two. Once you do, it'll change everything. And I do think that Ingram will probably be worth a contract extension, but we'll kind of figure that out. Dave makes a comment, then we're going to get back to kind of some of the salary cap stuff. I wish an insider reporter would just come out and ask KOC or Flo about Lewis Cine. He was so good in college, just sucks. Yeah. Here's the thing. When you are in the room and you are asking questions, you can't waste a question. And I'm not saying that your question's bad, Dave. I think your question is good, asking why he stinks. The problem is you're not going to get an answer to that question. They're not going to tell you. And because they're not going to tell you, that's what makes it a wasted question. Not because of the quality of the question, but because if you're not going to get an answer to the question, unless it's something like Vince McMahon is being charged with all the sexual assault stuff, and there's stuff coming out about non-disclosure agreements. You got to ask about that kind of stuff if you get a non-answer. But somebody like Lewis Cine asking him, hey, can you bury your own player and ask them why they stink? I think that would be a question, like an off-the-record question, where you just be like, hey, why isn't the light turning on for him? Because I think that's a bigger part of it. Why aren't things working? And I hope that they start working. I really do. I think, as you said, really good. He was a really good college player and had all the traits, but he was also drafted to play in a scheme that the Vikings aren't running anymore. That matters too. I think it's just unfortunate that 2022 draft kind of just stinks. And it was a big learning experience for this Vikings regime in the front office to try and learn from. And it feels like they did really quick because they nailed it with Addison and Blackman. Blackman looks to be a really good player. We know Addison already is. And then they're still expecting things from guys like Jay Ward and Jaquan Roy, who I do think have potential. And then this year's class, I thought they did a really good job. We'll kind of see how everything kind of works itself out. But yeah, it's a good question, Dave, but it wouldn't be one that they would ask because they would never get an answer. And they have so many other things that they ask about. That's what makes it tough. Okay.
I see now David Rinaldi posted number 6 is a sad story. Yes, it is. But what I'm happy at seeing, it's from Facebook. We've been having problems streaming to Facebook over the last couple weeks because Facebook changed their programming, their language again for streamers. But thank you, David. It's good to see you there. You made my night.
Yeah. All right. 2 more roster moves that I think the Vikings should look at with all this extra cap space. There aren't a lot of guys on the open market. Let's just be real. I took a look at the open market earlier today. I do think linebacker could be a sneaky one, but like the best player on the linebacker market is Leighton Vander Esch, and he retired because of a neck injury. So like it's a depleted market. I mean, you can maybe look at tackle. DJ Humphries is a free agent, but what are you going to give him $8 million to be your swing guy? Like it's just not flush with talent at places that the Vikings need. I did find 2 other players. One of them is a wide receiver, and this may ruffle some feathers a little bit because I genuinely have not liked watching this player play football because I hate the Saints, and that's Michael Thomas. He has played less than 1,000 snaps over the last 4 years, dealt with a really bad foot injury, and then re-aggravated it, and it took him a long time. He may just be done. He may be washed. But 2019, 2018, 2017, and like he was one of the best wide receivers in football, and he earned a massive contract extension from the New Orleans Saints. A very, very good football player. And that's why he's like a prime example. Get paid while you can. You can take the risk and wait, but get paid because you never know when that injury is going to strike. You never know. Well, he got paid, and good for him. But if he is going to be anything, having him as like a power slot, I think could be a really good addition to this Minnesota Vikings team. And I like the idea of it. Will it work? I don't know. I honestly couldn't tell you if it'll work. But it would be something I would be interested in trying. Vet minimum, load that sucker with incentives. Like, give him up to like $10 million in incentives. And the best part is because he hasn't done anything the last 4 years, they're going to be not likely to be earned. So if he catches 60 balls for 900 yards, like then he'll get like, let's say $7-8 million. Okay. If you're getting that kind of production from your wide receiver 3, I think you're okay with giving that guy like $8 million. I would be. And that's where you can get a guy who you just don't know if they have anything left. Give him a massive incentive-laden deal. And I think with Michael Thomas, you could strike gold or you could just get nothing. Who the hell knows? But it'd be worth a try. And I think that's where the conversation starts. It's worth a try. Last guy.
But on the wide receiver 3 spot, if the folks haven't check out 2 old bloggers from yesterday. Darren and I had a whole segment on wide receiver 3 and what to expect this year when it comes to production totals is part of it. So interesting take by you, Tyler. Interesting.
You got to shoot for home runs, but you have to play it cautious too. And that's where the incentive-laden deal, you hit a home run, yeah, you're going to give him money. But I don't think you care if you give him money because he way produced for you. So it's a mutually beneficial contract. Like maybe give him like a $1 million signing bonus, like a good faith deposit. And then if you cut him, it's $1 million. As far as salary cap space, who cares? Like it's fine. It was worth the risk. The other guy that I would look at is Calais Campbell. Defensive end, has played for the Arizona Cardinals, Jacksonville Jaguars, and Atlanta Falcons. Also the Baltimore Ravens. He's surprisingly gotten around in his 15-ish year career, but I would sign Campbell to be a rotational guy. 25 to 35 snaps a game, not a lot. He's 6'8", over 300 pounds, 35.5-inch arms. And that's why I would sign him. That arm length, how to use it, how to create opportunities for yourself with that arm length, I think would be a massive, massive benefit to Jonathan Grenard, who has 35.5-inch arms, to Dallas Turner, who has 34.5-inch arms. Help continue developing those guys. A guy like Campbell can show you how to use that length. And with how Brian Flores wants to really maximize different versatility elements and utilize these unique position groups, where last year they ran a lot of 3 edge rushers, 7 defensive backs, 1 linebacker. That's a really weird personnel package, but it gives you flexibility because now you can move your edge rushers all across the line. Well, Jonathan Grenard is an edge rusher that's primed to play on the inside because of that arm length. Teach him how to maximize it. Help him maximize it. And then if you do that, then you can help them take the next step. And I think a guy like Campbell, well, he's going to be 38 when the season starts. I think that's okay. I think it's okay that he's older because you're just asking him to be a rotational guy and essentially an extra coach. But I think having that player would be objectively great. Will he want to play? I don't have that answer. I don't know if he really wants to play. I don't know how much it would take to get him to play. Like Ndamukong Suh was willing to play, but he wanted way too much money for what NFL teams were willing to offer him at a certain point. So then he just kind of stopped. So yeah, I would look into Calais Campbell. Like there are things that you can do, but you can also just be like, you know what? We're just going to save it for next year and try and then figure things out over time. And I think that's kind of what you're looking at. Like you could do a little bit of anything. This is the flexibility element, Dave. Flexibility. They have it with their cap space right now. And we'll find out what they choose to do. Because quite frankly, I don't know.
I'm wondering they basically do nothing and use it as, rainy day fund and roll whatever's left into next year. And next year will be the spending spree in free agency.
Yeah. All right. Speaking of spending spree in free agency, already seeing some doom about not being able to pay Christian Darrisaw and Jordan Addison.
What?
Hey, just listen to me. Take a deep breath. Relax. It is not a doom and gloom scenario. Vikings have plenty of space to do a lot with their current roster, paying players. They could sign Christian Darrisaw to an extension now, give him top of the market value, which is about $28 million a year, and still have plenty of money to make some moves in free agency. They're fine. They're fine. And I'm projecting them right now to have around $75 million in cap space next year. So when you look at over the cap, so when you go to cap space and then you click 2025, okay, their projections are still only at $260 million. So these projections came before they released the cap space for the 2024 season. They projected the cap space for 2024 to be about 10 million less than it was. They weren't expecting it to jump that high. So their projections right now are only 4.6 million higher than what the salary cap is. So that's going to change. I'm projecting it to go up about $35 million. That number could change too. And that's why it's a projection. So with $35 million on top of that 255.4, that brings it up to 290.4. So right now, the Minnesota Vikings are projected to have $54 million in cap space. You add $35 million on top of that, you're looking at 90-ish million. And then you're going to have to kind of do some maneuvering with the in-season stuff. Like, so I'm thinking when everything's all said and done, they're going to have around $75 million in cap space. That's a lot of money. That is a lot of money to play with. That is a lot of money to add to the team. Now, it looks like 8th in cap space. Patriots, Cardinals, Commanders, Steelers, Cowboys, Bears, and Jets all have more cap space next year than the Minnesota Vikings. That's okay. That's not a huge.
Uh-oh. And your internet froze up.
Oh boy.
But that's okay. He said you're 89 million, whatever. It's not a huge. And that's where you went. They've got quite a bit. Now, what surprises me, you were talking about Darrisaw. You expected 28 million as top. I remember when left tackles were the highest paid non-quarterbacks position. Mm-hmm. And it sort of surprised me. I looked right now, the highest paid left tackle is 25 million, which sort of surprised me.
Did they modify Trent Williams' contract at all?
He's showing third at 23, a little over 23 million on average.
Okay. Yeah. Laramie Tunsil's at 25, but then if you include right tackle, Penei Sewell just got 28. So he kind of set the market. I think Christian Darrisaw is a small step below Penei Sewell. And that's not an insult to Darrisaw. Penei Sewell's just really, really good. And he's only 24 years old. He's a young guy. Actually, I think he's only 23 right now. The things he was doing as an 18-year-old true freshman at Oregon are legendary. So like, if he gets top, like tippy top of the market, he's getting 28 million. And I think that's fine. I think he's probably going to settle in more like that 25, 26 range. Because I don't know if I'd say he's better than Laramie Tunsil. And that's what Tunsil's getting at 25 million. But that's kind of what you're looking at. And with that projection, I didn't have
cap inflation. That guys coming for contracts take more because of the new cap. Just like wide receivers, just like quarterbacks.
Mm-hmm. So I'll say this. I think the reason why tackles have gotten less money is because they're less important. A single offensive lineman is less important than a single wide receiver. But a group of offensive linemen is more important than a group of pass catchers. Because offensive line is not about one or two great parts. It's about no weak parts. So I think that's one of the reasons why offensive line contracts, even though guards have skyrocketed, tackle contracts have fallen behind wide receivers. Because Justin Jefferson, to me, is more important on an individual level than the best tackle in the National Football League. Because I think as a singular player, they're more impactful.
Mm-hmm. Well, and the game's changed. It's evolved. Mm-hmm. Back when tackles were the premium position, it was because quarterbacks were drop back statues. And you needed that left tackle to protect the blind side, right? That was the important deal. Keep your quarterback alive. Make sure nobody hits him from the backside. And that's why they made so much money. Well, the game's evolved. Quarterbacks don't, for the most part, play that way unless they're named Kirk Cousins. And so they're going to be able to move and stuff. And then you're bringing in the entire O-line becomes even more important. And that's just evolution of football.
Yeah. Like, I'm going to be really intrigued to kind of see what the Vikings end up doing with this cap space and how they're going to prioritize their roster building. Because I think they're okay just having average ass interior offensive linemen, which I think is an interesting strategy. I'm going to be fascinated to see how it plays out. Because the idea, like we just talked about, the offensive line is you don't want any weaknesses. You don't want a debilitating guy. Because if you have a weakness, like if you have a Dakota Dozier, it's going to be brutal because they're just going to attack Dakota Dozier. Whereas with the Minnesota, with how the offensive line is currently structured, Blake Brandle's fine. He's not great. He's also not a disaster. He's an average player. That's why I've always talked about guards don't matter. Average guards. You have average guards, elite tackles. I'd like an improvement at center, but right now that's wishful thinking. Maybe they'll be able to address it next year. Well, let's look at the centers. Let's look at free agency guards and centers next year. Are there any good ones?
That would have been a good question for Chad last week.
Chad's a college football guy, so probably not.
Of who in the center? Are the centers looking good as a position next year?
I'll start getting into summer scouting here in a little bit, and we'll do a couple SKOL searches talking about it. So Ryan Kelly, the center from the Colts, is going to be a free agent. Brandon Scherf from the Jaguars. If he doesn't command a ton of money, I'd kind of like that as like a 2-year deal. Ted Karras he's on the better portion of the average scale at center. He's going to be a free agent from the Bengals. Everybody's favorite offensive lineman, Minnesota Vikings, Will Hernandez, will be a free agent. There's a couple interesting ones, and there's always going to be guys who get cut. Zach Martin's going to be a free agent. Will he ever leave Dallas? If he doesn't, if he does leave Dallas, I think the Vikings would be smart to pay him because, hey, you have a chance to get a Hall of Fame guard on your team for a couple years to protect JJ McCarthy. Okay. That sounds great. Let's do it. That's why this next offseason is going to be so fascinating. I can't wait. Well, I can wait because I want to watch the games first, but how they choose to continue to finish building out this team is going to be so much fun. And we're going to have all of it. We're going to talk about every angle. And I want to finish with this. I just wrote a piece. A media company out of Detroit called Woodward Sports, their morning show, Dave, talked about how the Vikings, and I'm just going to give it to you without any context here, because I want you to react to it while I pull it up. The Vikings are worse off signing Justin Jefferson for JJ McCarthy because they will be able to put less weapons around JJ McCarthy. What do you think about that?
You say they're out of where? Detroit?
Yep.
They've been drinking the local water. Too much lead in
it. Yes. 100%. Okay. Here is the full quote. All right. I'm glad the Vikings paid him versus trading him. It would speed up their Vikings rebuild. This is that many less weapons that you put around JJ McCarthy. It's going to handicap them. Dog. They have the best receiver in football, a top 5 tight end, one of the better emerging wide receiver 2s in the game, and a really good running back now. And they have $27 million in cap space.
2 bookend tackles. Yep.
Yeah. How are you going to struggle to do that? Because they haven't.
The danger of lead pipes, people. Make sure your city has lined them, and so you can't get lead in your water.
Mm-hmm. With that is our show here tonight. Wednesday. Dave, we have a dog trainer coming on Wednesday, so we may have to modify the time a little bit. But we will communicate that with you as soon as possible. Or we just won't have a live show and it'll air right at 6:05. But we'll let you know. We promise. We're going to have more conversations. There's going to be mini cam conversations to have, discussion of JJ McCarthy, discussion of Justin Jefferson and what he thinks of the contract. And there's going to be a lot more to talk about on Wednesday. And then after that, we'll probably be doing some summer stuff. We'll be talking about the state of the roster. We'll be talking about different things. And I may do some extra podcast stuff because you know what? Why not? Why not, Dave? And that'll be it here, guys. Thank you very much for joining. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe. If you're listening on podcast, we thank you as well. Grandizer, just search Tyler Forness, the Sporting News. Click on my author page, which will be right at the top of Google, and you'll be able to see, I think I wrote 13 pieces on the Justin Jefferson contract today. So there's going to be plenty there from me. And with that being said,
a lot.
Yeah, I'm Tyler. He's Dave. We're going to still have a lot for you here at Vikings First and SKOL. SKOL Vikings, baby.
SKOL Vikings. Like, subscribe, and ring the bell to get notifications. It helps us grow this community that we all love, our Minnesota Vikings. And on behalf of Tyler Forness and myself, Dave Stefano, thank you so dearly for watching The Real Forno Show. SKOL, everyone!